All right, let's jump right into it. Welcome back to another explainer. Today we are stripping away all that confusing financial jargon and going back, like way back. Most of us kind of assume that building wealth takes some elite insider knowledge or this massively high income, right? But what if the literal blueprint for modern financial planning was actually written, about 10,000 years ago? Today we're going to see how ancient tribal survival habits are actually the exact same strategies used by the wealthy right now. We're going to look at how our ancestors basically beat the ultimate game of survival, and how those exact same rules still dictate who struggles and who thrives in today's economy.
So to kick things off, I want you to think about your own paycheck for a second. Think of your income like a really successful hunt. Every payday, you bring another animal back to the cave. But here's the big question. Are you eating the entire hunt? Because here is the brutal reality of it. Most people's money problems actually don't start the day they lose a job. They start the absolute second every paycheck disappears just as fast as it arrives. You celebrate the hunt, you consume it all, and you just kind of assume tomorrow is magically going to provide another one.
Let's picture a tale of two tribes living 10,000 years ago. They're in the exact same land, facing the exact same weather, and hunting the exact same animals. But after one super brutal winter, only one tribe actually makes it. Tribe 1, they celebrated every single victory by roasting the biggest feast possible. They chased immediate comfort, consumed everything, and figured tomorrow would sort itself out. Tribe 2, though, they celebrated for just one night. By the next morning, they were building security. They dried extra meat, they stored away berries, they spent time repairing their spears. Now, Tribe 1 probably thought they were completely crazy for stressing out about a winter that wasn't even here yet. But Tribe 2 understood wealth thousands of years before money was even invented.
And the wild thing is, Tribe 1 is still very much alive today. If you don't have any stored meat, savings, a simple $500 car breakdown in month 1 isn't just a minor annoyance, it is a full-blown crisis. You literally have to borrow high-interest money in month 2 just to stay afloat. And then what happens? By month 4, all those fees and interest charges have pushed that initial debt to $900. By month 6, you are suddenly staring down a $1,200 debt crisis. This is the modern poverty trap right here. The modern Tribe 1 doesn't just pay for the car repair. They pay this massive compounding penalty for not being able to afford the repair in the first place. Every single setback just creates another setback.
Which brings us to this absolutely fascinating concept called the boots theory. It perfectly explains why it is so incredibly expensive to be unprepared. The idea is this. A wealthy person goes out and buys high-quality boots for $100, and those boots last them 10 years. But a poor person, who just can't afford that upfront cost, buys a pair of $20 boots. The catch? Those cheap boots wear out every single year. So over a decade, the wealthy person only spent $100, while the poor person ended up spending $200. It's a hidden financial trap. When you don't have the resources up front, you often end up paying literally twice as much over time for something that's actually significantly worse. And you see this everywhere, with cars, housing, groceries, you name it.
And this penalty applies to pretty much everything, but it is especially brutal when it comes to debt. Think about it. The wealthy borrower who, let's be honest, doesn't even really need the money, gets this nice low 5% interest rate. Meanwhile, the poor borrower, who is desperately just needing a lifeline, gets completely slammed with a 20 to 30% interest rate. It is this shocking irony in our modern financial system. The people who need financial help the most are charged the absolute highest prices for it. It creates this vicious cycle, right? Debt leads to stress, the stress leads to mistakes, and those mistakes just lead right back to even more expensive debt.
But here's the thing. The cost isn't just measured in dollars. It's also measured in your bandwidth. People call this the time tax. Wealthy people essentially use their money to buy time. But if you're struggling, you're forced to spend your time because you lack the money. We're talking longer bus rides across town, constantly patching up old equipment, working 2 or 3 jobs just to scrape by for the week. When your brain is 100% focused on just surviving today, long-term planning is almost impossible. You simply don't have the mental energy, or frankly the hours in the day, to sit down and figure out how to build wealth.
Which brings us right back to our tribes. Tribe 2 survived because they actually prepared for winter. But in our modern lives, winter doesn't always mean snow, does it? Sometimes winter is a sudden medical emergency. Sometimes your company restructures and boom, you lose your job. Or actually, sometimes winter is an incredible opportunity you've been waiting years for, but you just can't afford to take the leap because every single dollar of your paycheck is already spoken for. Drying meat in the ancient world is literally the exact same concept as building a modern emergency fund. It's not about being a hoarder, it's about buying stability.
And this is where the pure genius of our ancestors really shines, because every single smart ancient habit translates directly into a core pillar of modern wealth building. Storing meat? Bam, that's your emergency fund. Sharpening spears, that's buying assets and upgrading your skills. Having multiple hunters out in the field, that translates to having diversified income streams. And planting seeds? Well, that is the very essence of compound investing. They didn't call it financial planning back then, obviously. They just called it survival. But the mechanics are completely identical.
Let's look at sharpening spears for a second. To Tribe 2, a spear wasn't an expense, it was an investment. A sharper spear meant catching more food, period. Today, so many of us spend our hunt on things that lose value the absolute second we buy them. That is an expense. The wealthy, however, think exactly like those surviving tribes. They buy tools way before they buy toys. They buy skills before they buy status symbols. They focus their resources on things that will actually go out and produce even more resources for them down the road.
Now, a sharp spear is pretty much useless if you only have one guy in the whole tribe who knows how to throw it. The smartest tribes never ever relied on just one hunter, because if you did, you were always just one twisted ankle away from total starvation. So what do? They diversified. Some hunted, some fished the rivers, some gathered berries, others crafted tools or taught the kids. In today's world, relying on just a single paycheck is the exact same thing as relying on one single hunter. Learning a new skill, spinning up a side hustle, investing in your own knowledge, these are your extra hunters. Ultimately, this is all about managing risk. You can't ever eliminate risk completely. There's always going to be something, but it can totally be managed. Just like our tribe didn't bet everything on one type of food, successful modern investors don't bet everything on just one asset. They spread their resources around: stocks, bonds, international markets, broad index funds. That way, if the hunting is terrible in one sector of the economy, the fishing in another sector keeps your portfolio perfectly fed.
But of course, when winter actually hits, people tend to do some pretty crazy things. When the stock market drops, when our modern winter arrives, people panic. They start emotional investing. They try to perfectly time the market, or they just blindly follow whatever financial hype is blowing up on social media that day. Listen, panic selling your investments during a downturn is the modern equivalent of getting scared during a blizzard and just throwing all your carefully dried meat straight into the river. It makes no sense. You have to trust your preparation and completely avoid that short-term thinking.
And if you can avoid those panic mistakes, you unlock the absolute most powerful habit in the book: planting seeds. The smartest ancient humans realized early on that a seed isn't food today. But if you have the patience to put it in the ground and just wait, it becomes hundreds of meals later on. Modern compound investing works exactly the same way. True wealth creation isn't just about what you can physically earn with your own two hands. It's about putting your money in the ground, so to speak, and letting it grow while you sleep.
And this is exactly why time is, hands down, your most valuable asset. If investor A starts planting their seeds at age 25, and investor B waits until age 35, it is almost impossible for investor B to ever fully catch up. Why? Simply because investor A gave their seeds more seasons to grow. Ancient people weren't checking an investment app every 5 minutes, right? They trusted the process. You plant, you wait, you protect it, and then you harvest.
So that really brings us to the two giant forces that are going to dictate your entire financial life. The wealthy tap into positive compounding. Your wealth grows, then that new growth grows, and over a few decades, it creates absolute freedom. But remember that poverty trap we talked about? That is negative compounding in action. You miss one payment, your credit score tanks, your borrowing costs spike, your debt grows, and your stress grows right along with it. Compounding is happening in your life right this very second, whether you realize it or not. The real question is, which direction is it taking you? Okay, so how do we make sure we end up on the winning side of that equation? It really comes down to these 4 proven steps for surviving the financial winter. Number 1, build a solid financial foundation. Store your meat and get yourself out of that high-interest debt. 2, invest consistently. Keep planting those seeds no matter what the market season is. 3, diversify appropriately. Make sure you've got multiple hunters working for you. And 4, think long-term. Do not panic and throw away your supplies. You honestly don't need some secret elite knowledge. You just need the discipline to actually execute these 4 simple steps.
It's wild to think about, really. Thousands of years have passed. Our caves turned into houses. Our wooden spears turned into smartphones. The ancient forests are now sprawling cities. But the fundamental rules of survival, they haven't changed one single bit. If you consume everything you hunt today, winter will eventually show up, and it's going to be a disaster. But if you prepare, if you store, if you plant, well, every dollar you choose not to waste today is quite literally buying your freedom for tomorrow.
Which leaves us with this final, incredibly critical question for you to chew on. Will your future look different from your past? Or are you just sort of still living on luck? Tribe 2 wasn't really just saving food.
They were buying themselves peace of mind. And today, preparing before the winter arrives is still the single greatest investment you will ever make. It is officially time to stop eating the entire hunt. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I challenge you, go out